So I'll finish by talking a bit about the Atlantic divide or bridge. Depends how we look at it, I guess. So here what I'll say, I have to say a caveat here, is obviously a strong oversimplification, okay? Things are much more subtle and much more complex than what I'm going to say right now. But what I really want to do is, with this last few points, is to open up the discussion and the debate. So how can we characterize really the difference between European institutionalism and North American institutionalism? I think one nice way to characterize that difference is to use the term that is used by Matt and Mood to talk about CSR, implicit versus explicit, and I think that we have actually this differentiation between European institutionalism and North American institutionalism. What do I mean? Well, in Europe, and Europeans in general, have to confront every day. I mean, it's just, you go out of here and you look around you and you are confronted, and in Paris it's the same everywhere in Europe, with the impact of history and the impact of surrounding context. So in a sense, the institutionalist insight, the institutionalist perspective is deeply ingrained in us. We know it's important. We know it shapes who we are. We know it shapes what we do. We know and we know it explains the difference between us here in Turkey and us in France, or etc. So we know those things are important, but we, in a sense, take it for granted. So we have, in a sense, an implicit institutionalism. It's like Monsieur Jourdain, who is doing prose without knowing it. We are institutionalists without knowing it, and so in a sense, this is subdued in European thought. This notion is a bit subdued. In the US, on the other hand, I mean, we have to realize that the North American continent was built on the cultural and political rejection of this deep inscription. This was really the way in which the US and Canada, to some extent, in fact, also was built by people wanting to escape that inscription and going there for that very reason. So it's a bit the Robinson Crusoe utopia. It's basically everything is possible to the free, empowered, and rational actor that is freed from all cultural, institutional, family, and personal shackles. Okay. So in U.S. institutionalism, in that sense, the U.S. institutionalism has had to fight against this, in a sense, founding myth, which is very incompatible with itself. Okay, and so that's my explanation, at least, for the need for a more explicit form of institutionalism in the U.S., for a more militant form of institutionalism in the U.S., for things like the multiplication of communication, in a sense, around institutional theory. So with the multiplication of the labels, fashions that I mentioned before. We had institutional work, we had institutional logics that replaced everything. We'll have institutional complexity that is now the next new thing, etc. So this constant militant, explicit form of institutionalism can be explained, I think, by the differences between the two contexts. So the paradox is, in the sense that institutionalism has become more visible and, in appearance, more widespread in North America over the last 30 or 40 years or so, in particular, than in Europe, while its core argument is much more fragile on the intellectual scene in that part of the world than in Europe, which also explains why you could get this creeping back of the rational choice actor in the North American institutional theory much more easily than in European institutionalism. I don't think this could have been possible in European institutionalism, really.